everyone, welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. My name is Melanie and I have Nikki from Nikki's Scrapbooking Adventures with me today for another Calling Creatives. Hi, Nikki.
Hey, Melanie.
So we have another interesting, well, we hope interesting topic. And Nikki alluded to this on her episode on Monday. So if you haven't seen that, be sure to go and check that out. But we are going to talk about our different tools, and we all have them, many of which don't get enough use. And so we thought we would have a chat about ways to resurrect them maybe, or, pull them out and get some use out of them. Tools are one of those things that I think a lot of us struggle to use efficiently, and also that we tend to forget about them and that we never want to purge them because there's nothing wrong with them. Right?
Oh my gosh, yes. I don't want to ever get rid of my tools, but they can also be bulky and take a lot of space that you could store something else in. But they're like the last thing to go. The first thing to go when I'm purging is my paper because I have so much of it. Last thing is tools. What about you?
Yeah, for sure. And I struggle with tools because I go, well, I could use it. Okay. Well, you could, but are you going to, right? And so really what we're hoping to inspire today is are you going to use it? And the answer will be yes.
Yes, exactly. One of the tools that I had my husband buy for me for Christmas was a button maker, which you can make flair for your scrapbook pages, so you can make your own. You can make pins if you wanted to do like a community event and everybody has a pin identifying who they are or whatever. You can do bottle cap openers. I've seen the backs of that on the little pins. You can make magnets. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with this tool in addition to what you can make for your scrapbook pages.
I know you can make flair, right? Mm-hmm. Now I have one as well, but it came with the badges with the pin backers. Have you found a source to find the backers that don't have the pin, like where they're flat backed?
I'm cheap and I just take the pin off.
Yeah, that's what I do too. But when I run out of those eventually, maybe never, because I got a lot, but
Maybe never. Let's be real. Maybe never, Melody. There's so many companies out now that make flair that are super cute. And so because I have that machine now, I'm like not buying anymore. Right. But I'm also not using the stuff that I've already purchased.
Right.
So it's like a catch-22, right? Like I bought my own so I could have my flair all match my collection and use the paper and for the scraps or whatever. But then I never pull it out. And it's like sitting right up here. You can see it in my little box right there.
Yeah.
Like, it's really close to my desk, but I have to get on a stool to get it.
And they aren't hard to make. They really aren't. They're quite simple. Now, are you intending to just use like scrap bits of paper to make these, or are you going to do things like stamp or add images or anything to them?
So when I first got it, the Love Story collection by Simple Stories had just come out, and I got everything. I mean, the sticker book, like everything, okay? Well, the sticker book had circle stickers in it that were perfectly sized for making flair. So I used those on paper to make some flair for that collection. I haven't pulled it out since.
Now, do you have the one that makes different sizes of buttons?
Yeah, I purposely got like the small, medium, and large. Now, I don't think like came out with their own button press where you can do shapes. I don't have any interest in making shapes. Like I don't like their star. I don't like the flower. I would rather just stick with the round.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one too. Keep that kind of stuff simple. And I think that goes for tools in general, right? Like the more generic the tool, the more uses you're going to get out of it. The more specific the tool is, the harder it is going to be to branch out of its intended functionality. So yeah, I would advise just getting a circle badge one as well. Now, I only went with one that makes just the small, I think it's like 1 inch or 1.5 inch, because I really don't see me making anything larger for a layout. I don't have kids. I'm not going to make badges for people to wear, that kind of thing. Now, I say that, now watch in the next, 2 months, I'm going to be like, man, I wish I had a bigger badge maker, but you know how that goes.
Yeah.
So do you put the plastic cover on when you do yours, or do you go for the matte finish?
I do the plastic cover because I feel like it stays on the badge better.
Okay. Yeah. I've experimented a little bit with it and with it without it. And it does look more finished with the plastic on it. Like,
Hmm.
but I do like the matte look. I've tried it with fabric too, which is something that is kind of fun. So if you've got scrap fabric Brits, that works perfectly in there as well. Just make sure the fabric is not like super, super thick. You might have a problem closing it, especially on the smaller buttons. But yeah, it's a lot of fun, but you definitely, need to pull it out and just
Hmm.
make some.
Right. I figure, it would be fun as something when my son's older, he can bring friends over and they can make their own badges and whatever. Like we did that in high school. We made things for sporting events, and then passed them out to make a little extra money.
Yeah, definitely from a kid's perspective, I could see you totally using it, birthday parties or whatever, right? So as
Hmm.
school events for sure. What's our next category?
Well, what tool do you have that you need to use?
I have all of the tools. Name it, I probably have it somewhere. So I was thinking about punches. So I have a love-hate with punches. I love how fast they are, right? Like if I want to cut circles with a punch, it's way faster than a die cut machine to cut out a ton of circles. I don't like how bulky they are and how much space they take up. And so, probably about 10 years ago, I said, I'm not buying any more punches. And then I got suckered into some creative memories. They had some really cool border punches, and so I did buy those. But I'm really trying to stay away from them. But I do love them, and I love using them just because of the ease of using them. Yeah, that's a lot of thems. But anyways, how about you? Do you have any punches?
Oh yeah, I've got a shoe hanger full that looks like it's going to break at any moment on the back of my craft room door.
And do you use them quite often?
I think I could probably pare down the shapes. I probably could just keep, like my circle, a heart, my heart punches, my diamond punches, because I love the diamond because I can make triangles out of the diamond and make cool patterns and that kind of thing. I love my diamond punch. And then holy borders.
Holy
That's the
borders?
most that I have. Yeah, holy borders, lots and lots of border punches. And what's hilarious is that I use my scallop the most.
I know. Yeah. So that's a good point too. Again, here that back to that idea of buying generic, and they call it generic, but like classic is probably a better word, like classic
Mhm.
shapes, classic borders. Those are the things that if you're going to invest money in, that's where you're going to get your bang for your buck. The really overly thematic ones, you're just not going to use them as often. For
Yeah.
sure not.
I've
Go ahead.
got an owl punch from Stampin' Up, where it gets all you the pieces and you layer it on top of the body and it makes a little cute little owl. I've not used it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the question is, we can talk about different ideas here of what you can use them for, but what would be a trigger for you to use them?
I don't know. Do you have any ideas? Because I got none. Because it's like my door is to the back of me when I'm crafting, and so I
Yeah.
don't see it.
Yeah.
I don't close my door very often for safety reasons, right? So I usually use my border punch because on a layout, on a sketch, it has like a little strip of something with a little bit of decorative border, and that's when I use my border
Right.
punches. But I don't really see owls or don't have a story of owls.
Right. Right. So you just need to make more cards because then you can put an owl on anything, right?
Yeah, yeah. Or
Or
Halloween needs to hurry up.
right. Or when you do your October daily, maybe you should do an owl themed book. And then you could put a little
Mm.
owl on every other page, or you could use the owl to number, like I don't know if you do numbers for your days, but you could put in his little body, you could put the numbers. That would be kind of a cute
Mhm.
crossover theme. So I tend to use punches a lot for labels. So like if you're going to add a label or like a tiny journaling spot on your layout, I will use that. I also use them for cluster bases. So to just kind of tuck behind, especially if I'm using a lot of pattern paper, I will like to use a punched shape that's maybe of a more solid cardstock just to kind of give some visual break. between your embellishments and the busy pattern paper. I've also used them to make backgrounds. So I will punch out like hexagons and do like a pattern for a background page. I've done it with hearts. So it's almost like you're creating your own cardstock. Not like I need to make my own cardstock, because heaven knows I have a ton of it. But if you're feeling a little bit fun, or a little bit crafty, you could do that. You could also make repetitive, like I call it repetitive borders, but if you use a circle, you can overlap it and create a border as well. You don't actually need a border punch, right? Or you can take a circle and cut it in half and make your own scalloped border with that. So there are some ways that you could look at using your punches for scrapbook layouts that's not just the shape that it is.
Brownie School Sue Scrapper, I think, uses her punches to make like animals. And you wouldn't even know from like the start of it, that's the punch that she would use. Like, it's really cool.
Some people are way more creative than I am when it comes to stuff like that. But that is true. You can do a lot with punches. You just have to kind of, think outside the box a little bit. I bought some wooden buttons from Amazon, just some plain wooden buttons. And you know how you can get those epoxy filled wooden buttons? So, just use your circle punch, use some scraps, and just basically punch out that, fill that into the wooden button, add a little bit of glossy accents on top of it. And you've got those wooden kind of buttons that are decorative. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, it'll be a lot cheaper. Because those wooden buttons, I think I got like, I don't know, 200 buttons for like $3 or something like that. So if that's your thing, I mean, I know they're not as popular as they once were, but we can still use them if you like them.
Yeah, absolutely. Another tool that I'm kind of looking around my room and seeing is my Zutter, which is very similar to a cinch, where you can make books and you bind your books with spirals. Now, the cinch is getting kind of cool because it's like called a multi-cinch, where you can change out the punch that you use. Mine only does, the double ring, normal kind of binding. And I love it for when I'm making gifts.
Okay. Now that is one tool I have not invested in, either the cinch or the Zutter. I have managed somehow. I don't know how, because I am like the queen of FOMO. I have somehow not engaged in that. So now, does yours just do just the little strip, or can you combine them to make like a bigger book?
So the strip comes so that you can go 12 by 12 if you wanted to. Yep. And then you just kind of use wire cutters to cut it down to the size that you want. In this case, I just use scrap from what I had cut out before. That's why there's extra gaps here. And that's my instruction manual for it.
Now you use that to make gift albums? Do you use it for anything else other than album?
So on my YouTube channel in August, from 12 by 12 scrapbook store, you'll see this little book I made. And it's for signatures while we're at Disney.
Ooh, fun.
So, yep, there's the whole white page for the character signature, and then a spot for a photo with the character, and then I did the whole book like that.
Nice. I can't wait to see how that turns out when you guys come back.
Yeah. Yes, I'm really excited.
Okay, so what else do we have? Okay, do you have a fuse tool?
I do have a fuse tool, and I've used it a couple of times. In December Daily, I made like a little shaker card with it. And then more recently, I used it to pare down some plastic sleeves so they fit in my organization system.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I've used it to make like little pockets for shakers, bits or whatever. But that is a good idea, that if you want to pare down or adjust anything with plastic, you can use the fuse tool to help with that. And that's pretty much, I think, about the only things I've used them for. Oh, that's not true. I've also used them to fuse like a plastic flip out. I know you can get some that have like adhesive on them, but I didn't have any, so I just made my own. I did have to slide like something into the page protector so I didn't fuse everything together. But yeah, I did do that. But mostly I use them for fusing pockets closed with something in them, and it works pretty good. I mean, I'm not always the straightest at it. Even though I use the ruler, I just, sometimes,
It slips. It's plastic. You're putting metal on plastic. It's gonna slip. That's just kind of how it goes. What I use to protect like the layers is Teflon sheets, which you can get at Amazon super cheap. They're what you put at the bottom of your oven. So it's like, heat proof.
So does it cut through that though?
No, nope. It does not
Okay.
cut through it. And because it's like a sheet, you can use your scissors to make it a different size.
Right. Easier to fit into the pocket. Oh, that's a good
Mhm.
idea. I use the Teflon sheets as a mat for when I do messy scrapbooking or crafty mixed media kind of stuff. And so now I've got another purpose for it. That's cool. Okay, so what else? Okay, what about a laminator? Do you have one of those?
I do, and I didn't buy it for scrapbooking. I actually bought it for my son because at one point I was making, laminated things for him to do during school.
You haven't bought it for scrapbooking, but have you used it for scrapbooking?
I made a happy planner cover, and that's about as close as I got for scrapbooking.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't know, like laminator sheets, how well they would work, like if you were to put stickers and stuff on. I would think that they would probably stick really well to it. I don't know. But like I'm thinking in planners, how a lot of people have dashboards. I suppose you could make your own dashboard and then just use it for post-it notes or whatever. Maybe.
I know you can use a laminator for foil. So like there's special ink that you can buy to foil and then put it through a laminator. It's similar to the Mink, right? It's the same
Well,
thing.
that's what Mink is. Mink is a laminator, let's be real. It's just marketed to a crafter, and I think they have a 12 by 12 one, which is not a common size if you were just to go to like Office Depot or something like that. So yeah, I do use mine for foiling. You do need like a laser printer or laser printed, because basically the plastic that's in laser printing is what binds to the foil and holds it to the paper. But you can also get other mediums to use. I think you can get like texture pastes and stuff like that that are specifically designed to work with heat foil laminating. Now, not laminating, with heat foil foiling. That sounds funny. But for those of you that are new to foiling, there are two different types of foils out on the marketplace. So just be really careful which one you're buying, because they don't work the same. One works with like a laminator type thing, and then the other one works with like what do they call it, like a glimmer press from Spellbinders and stuff like that. So just keep in mind.
There's three. So you can do the glimmer press, which is like a heated foil again, and then you can do cold foiling where you can get like a tacky texture paste, and when it's tacky, when it dries, you put the foil on and the foil releases onto the tacky texture paste. So it's like cold foiling and stuff.
Yeah, the same foil that you use for the laminator will work with that too.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, it will, because I've done it with like strips of tape. Like if you take red line tape and stuff like that, I just use the same foil and it will transfer. That type of foil just needs some sort of adhesive to hold it. There's no adhesive built into it, so it needs something to hold it, versus the other one has some sort of bonding agent in it, so it doesn't need it needs heat to transfer, but it doesn't need anything else to hold it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyways. I use the laminator to make dividers for organizing. So I have done that. And I've also done some decorative page inserts for like mini albums, where I've taken like embossing powder or sequins and I put them in between the laminating pouch, run that through, and then you get like a clear page that you can then insert in your planner or your mini album. I like using white embossing powder and like silver sequins for my December daily, just to kind of add an insert in there that's clear, which is fun, something a little bit different.
Paige Evans came out with these shaker pocket albums. I wonder if you could use like the laminated, like after it's been laminated, as an album cover.
You probably could. You
Mhm.
probably could. It's pretty thick, right? I think the
Mhm.
hardest part would be getting it to bend.
Yeah.
I think hers actually have like a spine in them. I mean, obviously you could use them as a cover if you're just going to do binder rings. That would
Right.
be no problem. But if you wanted it to go around the book, I'm not, you'd have to score it somehow, I guess,
Mhm.
or find a way to hinge it. Those albums are so cool.
They
I'm not
are.
sure where she gets them from, but they are very cool.
And it's just a bummer because it's like 4x4, and I do not make 4x4 albums. That is too small.
It is pretty tiny. But they are super cute when you do make them. I've done a couple. Some of these are a little bit more obscure. So let's go to the obvious ones, right? Stamps.
Hmm.
Like stamps are one of those ones that a lot of people think of stamps and making cards, but they definitely could be used for your scrapbooking, right? What are the ways you use stamps in your scrapbooking?
I use it in kind of like the mixed media, where you put a layer of your distress oxide and then you stamp on top of it. Similar to when you would use like a stencil too. So stencils and stamps in that aspect are kind of interchangeable. What about
So,
you?
so just for making backgrounds, basically, like
Hmm.
making your own cardstock again, because we all need to make our own cardstock.
Right. Or
Yeah,
making a cluster base, you have a colored cluster base to put your cluster on top of then.
right. So I have used stamps as embellishments. So really, by the time you die cut them, they're really just a die cut,
Mhm.
just like anything that you purchase. Obviously, they take a little bit more effort than a package of Echo Park, ephemera, but it is kind of fun to use some of those items in that way. I also have very specific stamp sets that I bought for scrapbooking. They tend to be very word driven. And so I use those to make labels or little caption boxes or just to add little bits and pieces here and there. I don't stamp on my photos very often just because of the slick surface. And
Mhm.
yes, I could use a Misty, but I just never get quite the results that I would like. They're
Mhm.
never as crisp as I would like, but I like the look. Like if it's done successfully, I like the look. So I think in that regards, as far as photos go, I probably would just print it. If I wanted something written on there, I probably would just type it up and print it that way.
Mhm.
But that is something that you can do as well.
I do a roller date stamp on my photos on every layout just to make sure I have the date on there, right? And using stays on will not allow it to rub.
And do you
So,
just use the black one, or have you used the white?
I have the white, and I had an idea to use the white. I don't know why I don't use it, but I always use the black because there's always a spot in the photo that's a little bit lighter. And even
Right.
if it's not, then I'll just put it somewhere else on the page.
Right. Makes sense. I haven't had a lot of success with the white. Again, it just never is that night super opaque, crisp, look that I'm going
Mhm.
for. I think you just have to embrace it. That's really what it is. And I guess I'm not ready to do that yet. But you can also make gift wrap with stamps, right? So you can buy just plain gift bags from the Dollar Tree and you could stamp on them with images. You could also buy like a roll of just white basic paper or craft paper and stamp on that to make your own gift wrap. Of course, the Dollar Tree has pretty inexpensive printed gift bags. So again, if you're, you know, it's going to take more time, right? But if you're looking for a crafty endeavor and ways to get more use out of your stamps, that's one of them. I think you can use stamps in your planners. I'm not a planner girl per se, but I know a lot of people will use stamps for that.
Mhm.
And you can make your own project life cards.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Or journaling blocks, that's the same kind of thing, right?
Yep, absolutely. I have a lot of stamps for scrapbooking, like a lot, way more than any one person should own. And I never use them. I look at
Uh,
them, I can't get rid of them because I'm like, well, I bought them because I could use this and I can still see the potential. It's not part of my process. And so I need to find a way to do that. And I suspect what I need to do is just pre-stamp a bunch and then just have them punched out with those punches or die cut them out and just treat them like ephemera, right? Because
mhm.
then I'm more likely to use them. I suspect that that's what I'm going to have to do.
I've made ephemera with stamps and dies and that kind of thing, and then put them in a little organizer. And then the organizer is in a place in my room that I can't actually reach. In addition, I usually scrapbook by collection. So if it's not in the collection bag, I'm probably not going to use it.
So really, you shouldn't buy stamps,
Oh my
right?
goodness. Well, so I buy more like icons, flowers, or I'm looking at here. I've got like a game set, and I used that on a layout recently, actually. Hang on.
So see, you do
So
use it.
yeah, here's this is a stamped image that I masked, and then I did my mixed media around it.
Yeah,
So this was a
that's
design
cool.
team layout. But you
That's
can
cool.
see also this is how I use it on the background of my page.
Yeah. So I have a question because you mentioned this is a design team layout. Do you
Mhm.
find being on a design team pushes you to be more creative than you would necessarily if you weren't on the design team? Like, would you have done this layout if you weren't on a design team?
I probably would have done the layout, but maybe not in this way because it was a scrap lift challenge. And in a scrap lift challenge, I think it's hard because are you trying to be like that person or are you trying to take their layout and get inspiration from it? And
Right.
so a lot of the other design team members that already uploaded their layouts and they all looked the same. And I was like, you know what, I'll be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So this is my take on it.
Right.
Definitely different than what the other gals had done.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's good. That's why you have a variety of people on a design team so that you get different ideas, right? We don't all want the same.
right.
So you mentioned dyes and that you've used those as well. So dyes are interesting and you could group your die cutting machines in here, right? Like your
Yeah.
Cricut Joy and that kind of thing. So obvious ones or ones that you've been using quite a bit is to die cut letters, your titles, that
Mhm.
kind of thing, right? That's kind of a no-brainer as far as that goes. You can use it to make your own stencils, right? So you can die cut images out of a piece of paper in some sort of pattern, and now you've got a stencil, right, with the negatives. Again, I would use them for cluster bases. I use them as just die cuts for what they are, right? Circles, squares, whatever. I've also made my own chipboard using die cuts.
Oh
And
yeah.
just by layering them, you basically get the look of a chipboard, right? And if you cut it out of foam instead of chipboard, you now have a foam thicker instead of a chipboard, right? So it's easy
Yes.
enough to make some modifications. How are other ways that you've used dyes?
I've seen people make like mini albums out of dies before where they get like, the big ones that are pretty big as you can go in your die cut machine. And they use that as like the base of the mini album. And then they make mini albums with those.
Yeah, that's a good one. Along that same lines, you can use dies to make shaped cards.
Mhm.
So rather than your standard rectangle, you can make, actually, I just did one recently out of a bow. So it was a bow about this big and it became a card. The card was the bow itself, which was kind of fun. I like to also use dies to make Christmas ornaments. So my Christmas tree is, I wouldn't say it's 100% handcrafted. It was at one point, but I do like the shiny Christmas bulbs on the tree.
Mhm.
So I do have some fillers, but almost, I would say probably about 90% of the tree is made from paper of some
Mhm.
sort. And I will use dyes to make those.
That's cool. I want to see a picture of your Christmas tree this year.
If I put it up, I haven't put it up for the last 2 years.
Melanie, shame, shame.
I know. I've just been in a bit of a funk, let's just say.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the energy to put it up, but even more the energy to take it down because I suspect it probably would still be up if I had put it. And then it would be, wow, it's August now, so might as well leave it up because December's going to be here before you know it.
Yeah. People do like different seasoned trees, they take the ornaments off for Christmas and put a spring ornament up or something like that. And then Halloween. And then,
Right.
so you don't necessarily have to take it down if you kind of change the seasons.
Yeah, the only problem is it's so big and I just don't have the space. And I think that's part of it. Mostly what happened was me working from home really messed up the dynamic of my apartment and I really need to let some furniture go. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, but if you move to someplace bigger, you're going to need it. You know what I mean? So and purging is
Maybe.
difficult in all parts of my life, not just in the scrap room. You can also make banners, right? So if you're someone who
Mhm.
likes to decorate for your kid's birthday, you can, make a birthday banner with your dies. But you could also do it for any holiday, really.
Mhm.
I've got, I think, some dies that will cut out like the triangle banners or even just the flag shaped ones.
Mhm.
But even if you don't have the ones to make the base, you can use your dies to decorate each of them, right? With the letters, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, if you're using an electronic die cut machine, it's a no-brainer.
Right. I've made sunglasses, like fake ones, with my electronic die cut machine for props for photo shoots before. So those are fun.
Yeah, there was sky's the limit when you talk about dies, and especially the electronic die cutting machine. You can use it to make gift toppers. So instead of putting a bow on, die cut like a nice image or something like that, or you could even stamp and die cut and add that as a topper. I don't know if you've heard of this before. Have you ever heard of something called iris folding?
No.
So it's more on the card making technique side of things than scrapbooking. But basically, it's a way of folding papers in a sort of outline design, and it has like an iris of a camera, right? So it kind of does like that circular kind of
Oh yeah.
thing. And I used a Christmas tree die to make the outline, and then I did the iris folding on the inside. I do have a video for that, so I will link that here if you want to check that out. But it's a fun way to kind of use that technique with your own images instead of just like a square or a circle or something.
That's cool.
And then the last one, make your own tags, right? Whether
Yeah.
they're gift tags or tags for scrapbooking, super easy with dies.
One tool that I'm kind of looking at here is my crocodile, where you can hole punch, you can add the eyelets, that kind of thing. I've used it for making traveler's notebook holders, where you add the string through.
Mm-hmm.
You can always use it in tags and add a little string through that for decoration, that kind of thing. I think even it'll go through other materials besides just paper because it's pretty like heavy duty.
Yeah,
So you
it
probably
sure
use
is.
leather and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, it sure is. I've actually used the crocodile to make a border of circles on a layout because
Oh.
it's got the little measurement, thing. It helps it easy. So you could just, punch along the edge. And then I
Mhm.
just put like a piece of paper behind there. So you get kind of like a decorative look with it,
I'm on
especially
the
for
hunt
thicker.
for a scallop crocodile one because that can get through a lot of paper. With bookmaking, you want to do multiple pages at a time so they look uniform. And
Right,
right now, mine I'm just not happy with.
right.
So I would like to get one that has the corner punch.
Like this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I use this one a lot. This is the corner rounder. It does a half inch and a quarter inch. I think
Hmm.
they call them the chomper.
Oh.
I also, from the same line, I have the quarter-inch one. I use this quite often for making little mini albums when I'm going to put binder rings through,
Oh yeah.
because the crocodile itself, the rings are like the largest hole in the crocodile is too small, I find, for binder rings. So another one I use all the time. In fact, it's always on my desk. They do have another hole punch. I don't know if that it's like the crocodile nut. It'll go through thicker materials, but it's got like a dial with different holes. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. I feel like it was We Are's way of trying to get, one punch that's really heavy with a whole bunch of different holes on it. I don't
Right.
think it'll go through as much paper as the crocodile goes
Yeah,
through.
that was my fear. And I'm like, I've already got all these individual ones. Do I need one
Right.
more? Because if I bought that, I wouldn't get rid of the other ones. I'd still hold on to
Yes.
them even. Yeah. Anyways.
Yes. I
And
will say one of my regrets is I have the Works trimmer, which has, all the punches that we are into one, plus the scoreboard, plus the trimmer. It's like intense. It's awesome. I love it. But I bought the Works and got rid of my normal scoreboard, and I wish I hadn't done that because
no,
now I have to bring the Works out every time I want to score.
that's another thing with all these all-in-ones, right? Like it sounds great in theory, but they usually are bigger and heavier and chunkier than the individual. So it depends like how often you use it and where you can store it, how often you end up using it then. So that's an interesting observation. Now, you did mention the word scoreboard. So besides just scoring to make a fold, what else have you used the scoreboard for? Anything?
I've used it to, make a pattern with the scores. You go like every quarter inch and then you get a cool line and you can go the opposite way and get a box, or like a cross hatch.
Right.
I've used it to make like faux wood. Have you seen those before where you score it every like quarter inch and then you drag your brown on it and it kind of makes it look like a wood plank?
Yeah. I've never actually done it with I don't think I've done it with a scoreboard. I've just done it and then hand drawn in, but that's a good idea, is to score it. And you really get that divot from the wood planks in there. That's a good one. The only thing I had down for scoreboard was embossing stripes, which is basically what you said earlier, right? Stripes, diamonds, hashed backgrounds, like anything that's got that kind of straight line in there. And then the other thing I had is you can use it to make your own envelopes.
Yes.
So again, that's just a fold. And of course, your own card bases, that kind of thing.
I do find that when I'm making my own card bases, I would rather not score because I feel like it's almost off. I would rather just, line up the corners, hold it really firmly, and then do that myself. Have you found that you like scoring or?
I like scoring, and I don't know what weight of paper you're using, but with the thicker the paper, the more cracking you can get if you don't kind of break the fibers with the scoring first. And I don't like that kind of cracking look that you get. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do find there's a little bit of give. So what I do is I will score and then I will still line up the corners, and then I will use the scoring tool to kind of straighten it out if need be. Yeah. But I've come to a realization after having tried 11 million trimmers, I cannot cut straight.
No, Melanie, we talked about this before. It is the trimmer's fault.
I just can't. I was doing it. I was just cutting before we came on this call, and I'm like, I cannot cut straight. I don't know why. I am why I have such a problem with this. And it's not like it's always been this way. It's only been in the last little while. So I don't know if I'm impatient and I'm not taking enough time. I don't know. Anyways, neither here nor there. Okay, so I have also down tools like a Misty, which is a stamp positioner. Do you have anything like that?
I have the Tim Holtz version and I love it for stamping. I don't really use it for anything else but stamping.
Okay, so I will use it actually for stenciling. So a lot of the stencils nowadays are layered stencils. And so you can actually, if your paper is big enough and configured properly, you can align your paper in the Misty and then align your stencils in there. And then you can just swap them one after the other and you'll know they'll always be perfectly aligned because you're using the edge of the Misty or stamp positioner. I really like that. You don't always have to tape it down and that kind of thing, which is really nice. I've also used it to align card panels. So like if you're taking a card panel and gluing it on top of a card base, sometimes you can just butt it into the corner and then that way everything aligns. You don't have to sit there and guess. Now, are those game changing? No. Like, you could probably put your head over and just, align it. But if you're struggling, try it. Might help.
I never thought about doing that for stenciling. I like that idea because your card doesn't need to be, or whatever you're using, doesn't need to be as big as the stencil. Then you could tape it down to the base and then just put the stencil into the corner every single time.
So speaking of stencils, obviously you can stencil, right? Apply ink through it. You can apply paste through it. What other things have you done with stencils?
I've tried embossing with them. It doesn't really work. Like, you really need to put a lot of extra into it.
You're talking about dry embossing to get that look.
Like that raised.
Yeah, I think it's all in the sandwich and the thickness that your machine can tolerate. And I've had limited success too. Like I get an impression, but it's nothing like an impression from a standard embossing folder.
Right. And that too, like stencils are pretty thin, right? So your embossing is only going to be as thick as the stencil. So I'd almost rather just use embossing paste or whatever it is, texture paste, to get that raised look.
So have you ever layered a stencil on top of a stamped image?
Yeah, that's what I did with that one page. I did
Oh, okay.
masking, and then I did stencil stamping. Have you heard of that before? Yeah, it was a Vicky Booten trick. So right here is stencil stamping, and I masked over this.
Right. So that's more what masking. What I was talking about though is like, let's say you have a solid stamped image and then you stencil on top of the solid stamped image.
I don't know that I have any solid stamped images.
Okay. So you basically just get a texture. Like you get the texture of the stencil on top of that image. It's kind of fun to play with, something a little bit different. And I've also done stencils where I've actually used them old school. Like old school, I mean like where you would take a pen or a pencil and actually like outline them, right? And then Zentangle or doodle on the inside for something a little bit different. But again, a lot more work than
Yes.
ink blending.
Ink blend or even like texture paste. Texture paste frustrates me because it takes so long to dry, right?
Yeah.
But when you do ink blending, at least I have all distress oxide. So if I add any little bit of water of it, it's going to bleed.
And then the last thing I had is just not so much, it's more of a technique than necessarily an innovative idea. It's just remember that you don't have to use the full stencil, right? So just use part of it. Okay, and the only other tool I had left on my list was embossing folders. Do you have embossing folders?
Yes. Do I use them? When it's challenged, like I do a lot of those challenges on Facebook, and the only time I really use them is if it's in a challenge. So I've made backgrounds with my embossing folders. I've taken like a stylist and gone on the back of a layout to make it look raised. So that was kind of cool.
So that's a way that you can take a smaller tool like an embossing folder on a large paper, right? You've transferred it that way. Have you ever tried stamping with an embossing folder?
I don't like the look. At least when I've done it, I don't like the look. Where you put the ink on one side of the folder, you spritz it with water, you put the thing through. I don't like the look.
It's a little too loose.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I've seen some cards lately, which I think are pretty cool, where they did a solid stamped image of like an ornament, and then they ran that paper through an embossing folder that was poinsettias. I thought that was really pretty.
Yeah, it is. It's quite striking, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So something to think about. You can also use it on things like a gel press. I don't know if you've done any mixed media gel making, just as a texture for that. Now, the only caveat I have that quite often with using a gel press, you're using acrylic ink or acrylic paint. So just be very careful, right, that you don't have that dry on your embossing folder, or you would have a bit of a mess to clean up. I mean, I suspect it probably would peel up off the folder, paint would, but if you get it in those nooks and crannies, good luck.
Good luck. Right? Yeah, that's a good point. And like those 3D embossing folders, I can't even imagine trying to clean those out.
Yeah. Ink's much safer route to go than paint. I love embossing folders. Like I love the look of them. I don't use them as often as I should. And I suspect it's primarily because it's one more step. Right. Again, I'm kind of like a broken record here, but really, I think for me, I am a what's on my desk and let me use it kind of person. And so I think if I'm going to start using some of these tools more, I almost have to pre-prep them in order to use them. So have a bunch of embossed panels just done and ready to go, and then I'll probably use them. I don't know.
One thing I liked, Janet from RTS did a toolbox series where she had one of those caddies and she just put a whole bunch of tools in it. And she said, these are the tools that I'm going to use for the month, and then made layouts with that. So maybe something along those lines would be easier for you instead of having all of them on your desk. You pick a couple generic ones and use them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I need to try something like that. I for instance, have like a carousel on my desk with some washi, just some random washi tape. I use that all the time. My other washi is literally just right over here. I don't get up to go do it. But it's like, oh, look at, there's washi. I'll just try. You know what I mean? Like it's the way I process, or the way I work is what's within here. I will gravitate for, the most. Now, don't get me wrong. I will get off of my seat. I'm not completely lazy, but if I can find something that'll work on my desk, I will probably use that sooner than. I just need a desk that's 3 stories long, tall and wide.
Yes. I agree. I might have to move my scrap room to the basement, and I am dreading it because I've got things where I want them. Now, it is a hot mess right now. Looking at my floor, that's like crazy. You can barely walk in the area. So it's going to be interesting in the next year or two. I'll probably have to move my scrap room.
I've been looking at, well, I've been thinking for quite a long time of moving. Just the thought of moving my craft room.
Yeah. I don't think moving states is a good idea for you.
I moved countries 12 years ago. Half my moving truck was scrapbooking supplies, like at least half. I have exponentially grown the amount of stuff I have here compared to what I brought from Canada. You know what? If I move, I'm going to have to do like some sort of giveaway with a guess how many boxes it's going to take Melanie to pack up her craft because I can't even imagine how many boxes it would take.
I don't know. I still vote that you move to Kansas City because you still get the Kansas City, you still get the city vibe, right? You're close to a major airport. There's things to do, and there's scrapbooking stores. I'm just saying.
and you're nearby, right?
So yes, exactly.
There you go. Fair enough.
I'm always trying to convince like my family to move here too, because I'm like, I'm right here. You don't have to travel then to see me, and I'm the best.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And you're central, right? So,
yes.
Okay. Well, did you have any other tools that you wanted to go through, or did we cover everything?
I think we got a lot of them. You know, we kind of talked about the ones that I struggle with using at the beginning with the button maker and the Zutter tool and that kind of thing. Yeah. But if anybody has other ideas for tools that they use and have other ideas for them, please list them down in the comments below. We'd love to read them.
Absolutely. And I think that is where we're going to leave off for today. I want to thank you guys all for joining us in this conversation. Please do, as Nikki said, leave a comment. It does make our day to see that you guys are engaging with us. You know, we want you to feel like you're right here in the conversation with us. So until next time, everyone, happy crafting.